Hey guys, so this is gonna be a pretty quick video. It's not really a build guide video, but it is, well, a build. And in this, I wanted to focus fully on Herald of Ice for the explosions. Initially began as a Call of the Void ring, because you can chill with any hits, and then if enemies dies, then they also shatter, which procs Herald of Ice, which then hits other enemies, which then chills and procs another Herald of Ice. But in the end, I went with the crit because the main issue with the Herald of Ice scaling is that it has pretty low base damage. If you check wiki, if you compare the base damage, 462 cold damage at level 20. If you compare to Freezing Pulse, for example, 2188. So it has like 4 or 5 times less damage than other cold skills, other cold spells. So the base damage is very low. It's also not a spell, or at least you cannot really add flat damage to spells to add damage to Herald of Ice. So the question is, how do you get enough damage and enough scaling for Herald of Ice to do enough damage to one-shot enemies in maps? And Sentinel, well, I guess brought some new things that we can do with the crafting, and I actually combined double essence into gloves, so the gems have 3.5% critical strike chance and added fire damage. And this added fire damage is basically half of Herald of Ice damage. But now I'm doing fire damage. So how do I scale this damage? And this is also Inquisitor. It was some different project, but it ended up working out for this because Inquisitor can ignore enemy resistances when you crit, which makes it easier to scale this fire damage as well, because the fire damage will also contribute to, well, it will scale basically the same, because if it crits, it ignores resistances and it doesn't matter. And since I am still able to use basically fire damage for chills as well, it does apply strong chills, and even if I don't crit, the enemies still gonna shatter essentially. So I wanted to see how far I can push this, and I made a video also asking ideas how would you go about this. And there are a couple ideas, like you could use Crest of Desire and put the Herald of Ice in there. You get double damage, you get plus levels, but the problem is plus levels don't really add much damage because Herald of Ice just doesn't really scale with levels all that well. If you look at level 28, Herald of Ice would be 928 only. It's still not even half of the Freezing Pulse at level 20. So levels don't really add all that much. I decided to go with the Annihilating Light, which is triple damage, but fixing resistances is kind of a problem. I am not even capped on res until I use the flask, so that's a bit of a problem. However, we can also use Blizzard Crown, which adds quite a lot of flare damage to everything, not just to spells or attacks, but also to healths. Because this is Inquisitor and ignore elemental resistances, this helmet is perfect. Then, like I said, the gloves crafted with the fire damage, which also works for Herald. And then going with the crit, crit chance, crit damage, because more crit chance means it's gonna ignore enemy resistances more often, and crit damage, and then added cold. By the way, it's not even like min-max build. I'm still missing like Herald of, I'm still missing Aspect of the Spider. Because right now I'm using just Arctic Armor, because what else do I use? I am using Lone Messenger. I can only have one Herald, and my other auras are disabled. So I cannot even use other auras, but I can still use Arctic Armor, I can still use Temporal Rift, I can also use Aspect of the Spider, which also gives damage. So ideally I would want to add Aspect of the Spider instead of Arctic Armor, and I'm still using F5 link single damage wise. I'm using Winter Orb mainly because you can like preload it and then go through enemies for the map quickly, and then it just automatically auto aims, and it hits one enemy, kills one enemy, and just everything explodes. I am also using Diamond Flask, so it is not optimized, of course, build. For the body armor, I went with just a lot of resistances and life because it's not very tanky build. Actually, I'm even surprised I was able to get 5.6k HP on this build, but like I'm not really properly capped on the res. But this is just like a clear speed build. It's not really designed for anything, but it was able to clear tier 14 maps. However, it works extremely well when you do not use up maps. I actually started doing this recently. Just take a map, put in a lot of chisels. I don't know how, but I never run out of chisels. And then just add some one or two mods, and Yeah, that's good. And just basically run this map. And it works very well until you start using up maps, until you start using sentinels. You can run maps with the sentinels, but it just adds, just makes enemies a bit too tanky, and the Herald of Ice just doesn't do enough damage. Ideally, I guess you would want like occultist, or actually there is an expensive way to make this better. Warlord's body armor could give you an explode modifier which scales with moisture life, but that's a pure physical and it's a chance to explode, but it could help a bit, but then you would need to get at least a bit of conversion into cold from physical. But that's an expensive option, and it would be even harder to cap resistances. I also wanted to be immune to chill. You actually don't really need to use this ring, but you kind of want, I think, because it also reduces enemy damage done, and it allows your other damage like fire and for example lighting to also contribute to the chill, which you kind of need. And if you, in case you don't freeze enemies, which probably shouldn't happen really, but if you don't freeze enemies and just chill, you can still one-shot them when you have this ring. So I'm not entirely sure that this ring is still worth using, but I still like having it because it reduces enemies damage as well. So there are still ways to improve this build. I still don't have anointment, I don't have the aspect of the spider, and it's only on a 5 link. I'm also using bone chill. I actually started using bone chill as well recently, and I like using it because it improves the chill, or makes it easier to chill for more. And if I chill enemies for 30%, I'm getting those enemies also take an extra 30% increased damage, which is actually also a final damage multiplier. I got myself a brutal Restrain just to be able to get onslaught, just for the onslaught. Essentially, I bought it just for the onslaught. Previously, I was using the rest of body armor. Actually, I guess I can refund now the endurance charge because I don't need it. But I was using that, and I was getting like 20-second duration onslaught with the increased onslaught effect, which makes me even faster, but it wasn't very reliable. If I don't get hit, then I don't get speed and become slower, and it feels bad. So I wanted more consistent speed, and you could definitely improve this build quite a bit more, but is it really worth it if you really enjoy those kind of visuals and Herald of Ice explosions, and just want it for farming like lower tier rater maps? It works fine and it doesn't cost much. Actually, it doesn't cost much at all. You don't really need anything special, you can just grab pretty much everything. The gloves, for me it took like 3 or 4 attempts, recombiners to create these. And they could be a lot stronger as well. Also, I would be interested, what do you think I could use these gloves for? What other build could use these? Because just this crit chance alone doesn't really add much to our spells or attacks. And the fire damage is nice, but would any other build be able to use these gloves? I'm not sure if I should sell them or keep them, or maybe use for some other build, because I'm struggling to find what other build to play. I've been spending like, this is the second day figuring out builds and nothing really clicks. So I'm already struggling deciding what builds to play. So if you got any ideas, leave them in the comments below. And I'm gonna include path of building import code with this build in video description. Oh, by the way, the MTX that I was using was Automaton Held effect, but I was also switching to Fade Guard. Fade Guard looks very clean, but I still prefer Automaton because of the like sound effects and just overwhelming amount of explosions. So yeah. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.